Hello and welcome to Tailboard Talk, checking in with GFR. This is part of a collaboration between ECU Family Medicine and Greenville Fire and Rescue to talk about mental health concerns that are common in first responders. My name is Sarah Vanacore. I am a behavioral health consultant at Family Medicine and also a clinical health psychology doctoral student at ECU. So today's topic is mental health stigma. So we're going to start with some mental health facts and myths. We're going to talk about basics of mental health, talk about what stigma is, and then talk about resources that can help you in your department. So first, let's talk about mental health facts and myths. I'm going to present you with a statement, and I want you to take a moment to decide if you think it's a fact or a myth. So the first one is, mental health problems are caused by personality weakness or character flaws. So take a moment, think about, is this a fact or a myth? And it is in fact a myth. Mental health problems don't mean that a person is lazy or weak. And in fact, they can be caused by a combination of many factors. So these can include biological factors like genes or physical illness or injury, life experiences like trauma or a history of abuse, a family history of mental health problems. So for example, if you have an immediate family member who experiences depression or anxiety, you're also more likely to experience them. And lastly, they can be caused by social factors. So this is things like access to healthcare or neighborhood safety or poverty. People with mental health needs cannot tolerate the stress of holding down a job. Is this a fact or a myth? So this is a myth. We know that people with mental health concerns are as productive as those without them, and employers who hire people with mental health needs report good attendance, punctuality, motivation, good work, and job tenure on par with or greater than other employees. And this is especially true when effective treatments are available. And when employees with mental health problems receive effective treatments, we know that it can result in things like lower total medical costs, increased productivity, lower absenteeism, and decreased disability costs. There is no hope for people with mental health problems. Once someone develops mental health problems, they will never recover. Is this a fact or a myth? So this is also a myth. We know from research that many people recover from mental health concerns, and recovery refers to the process by which people are able to live and work and learn and participate fully in their communities again. Sometimes those mental health concerns resolve on their own. So if you remember the previous presentation on trauma, many first responders experience very stressful or traumatic events. And afterwards, this can lead to problems with negative feelings or sleeping or appetite. Sometimes those occur for just a short period of time, often because you're using coping skills like social support from family and friends or engaging in hobbies or exercising that you're not even aware that you're using. Other times, mental health concerns can be more resistant. For example, someone who experiences a lot of anxiety for a long period of time about a lot of different things, that is something that may not go away on its own. But we also know that people who get the help they need can recover, and we know that there are more treatments and services and community support than ever before, and they work. We also know that support from family and friends makes a big difference, and so we'll talk about things you can do to support people who are experiencing mental health concerns later on in this presentation. Now that we have some of the myths out of the way, let's talk facts about mental health. We can think of health as a combination of different areas: biological, so genes and brain structures; psychological, so things like thoughts, feelings, and behaviors; social and spiritual, so family and community. At the center of these is health. And just as you pay attention to your basic needs like eating and sleeping, drinking enough water, or exercise, it's important for you as a first responder to take care of your mental health as well. It's also important to know that we have to work at our mental health. So if you think about exercise for a moment, you wouldn't go for a run 3 times and then say you're in shape and then stop, or you wouldn't eat a healthy meal once and then say that you're healthy or eating a healthy diet. You have to work at those things over the course of your life. And similarly, we don't just do 1 or 2 things to take care of our mental health and then stop. It's something that we continually have to work on. So here are some ways it looks like when we're mentally healthy. First, we have healthy reactions to stressors. So this is things like not letting small things keep you angry or upset for a long period of time. It's using healthy coping strategies and not eating or drinking or sleeping problems away. We're able to feel a wide range of emotions. It's often seen as acceptable to just express or feel anger, but it's more healthy to be able to feel a wide range of emotions. And that includes anger, but it also includes things like sadness, but also joy and excitement and happiness. We're able to be present in the moment. So when you're mentally healthy, we are able to enjoy being in the here and now instead of focusing on what went wrong in the past or what might go wrong in the future. We engage in meditation or self-reflection or prayer if you're spiritual or religious. Spiritual health we know is part of mental health. And whether or not you're religious, it's important to take time for some self-reflection. You're eating enough to sustain your body's needs, and you're eating the right things to be able to fuel your body, but not to an unhealthy excess. And you're also sleeping enough to be alert and awake and able to do your job, which we know is often a challenge for firefighters because of shift work. You're also able to address family and relationship problems in a healthy way, and addressing those problems respectfully and productively as they occur, instead of letting them boil over. So being able to maintain your sources of support, your social support, is another sign of being mentally healthy. You're able to celebrate achievement of goals. So we know that people, and especially leaders, are often able to point out their own flaws and the flaws of others. But it's also equally as important to be able to celebrate accomplishments of yourself and the people in your department. And last but not least, you're asking for help when you need it. You can't do it alone, and you don't serve in your department alone. So knowing when you're having a hard time balancing everything and being able to ask for help when you need it before waiting until you're falling behind is really important. So you might be asking, how is this relevant to me? And the answer is it's very relevant. We know from a 2018 survey conducted by the International Association of Firefighters that out of the 7,000 firefighters surveyed, 19% had thoughts about suicide, 27% had concerns about substance use, 59% reported family or relationship concerns, and 65% reported being affected negatively by memories of bad calls. In addition, we know that firefighters experience high rates of depression, sleep disturbances, and PTSD. And we also know that suicide rates among firefighters are high. So the National Fallen Firefighters Association reported that a department is 3 times more likely to experience someone dying by suicide in their departments than a line of duty death. We know from another 2015 study that 15.5% of firefighters reported a suicide attempt in their lifetime. And if you want to compare this to the general population, the rate is between 1.9 and 8.7%. We also know that the PTSD rate might be as high as 37% among firefighters, and it's about 8% in the general population. We also know that 81% reported that they feared being seen as weak or unfit for duty if they expressed concerns about their mental health for others. And so we know that it's important because so many people feel like they can't talk about it. So that brings us to stigma. And we can think of stigma as negative stereotypes, labels, judgments, and prejudice that can lead to discrimination. So stereotypes are generalized beliefs about a group of people. So people with mental illness are violent is an example of a stereotype. Prejudice is judgment based on that belief. So they're violent, I'm scared, I don't want anything to do with them. And then discrimination is action based on those judgments and beliefs. So I won't hire or rent to a person with mental illness because I'm scared of them. By the way, this is also a myth. We know that people who experience mental health concerns are more likely to be victims and not perpetrators of violence. And that's important because we know that because of your role on GFR, you're the first line responders for mental health in the community. You're often first on the scene when an incident occurs. And so it's doubly important not to generalize these types of beliefs to an entire population of people. So what are the effects of stigma? First, it increases reluctance or refusal to talk about mental health concerns. People might not feel comfortable doing that. And then it increases concern about the effect of help seeking on a person's career or reputation. They might think, if I go and seek help, what will my colleagues think about me? How will this affect my career? It can also diminish trust in leadership and decrease performance and cohesion. And it then can prevent or delay help seeking, which just can increase the severity and rate of mental health problems. So if we generalize those beliefs to an entire group of people, these are the things that can happen. And in general, it reduces the likelihood of a person getting treatment. They're not going to seek help if they feel stigmatized because of their mental health concerns. So how do you recognize warning signs of mental health concerns? The first might be changes in sleeping or eating. And we realize that sleep for you is complicated, especially with shift work. But we're not talking about shift work here. We're talking when you're off shift. If you find yourself having nightmares or anxiety that keeps you up at night, or you're waking up in the middle of the night and unable to go back to sleep. Or if someone's sleeping through pages, those can be warning signs or red flags. Withdrawal or isolating oneself. So if you're avoiding having conversations with your colleagues or with your family, or if you find yourself avoiding social gatherings. Not taking care of yourself. So things like physical health, weight, eating, sleeping. If someone is showing up looking disheveled and not put together, and that's not normally what they look like, that can be a warning sign. If you find yourself having overreactive emotions, so before we talked about healthy reactions to stressors, these are kind of unhealthy reactions. So blowing up over minor inconveniences. Drinking more than usual or using drugs can be a warning sign. Engaging in risky behaviors, so speeding or other reckless driving or drunk driving, excessive spending, those can all be warning signs. Expressing feelings of hopelessness or helplessness. And also just anxious or agitated behavior. Somebody might seem just kind of off or not themselves or not quite right. And these are all kind of warning signs that somebody might be experiencing a mental health concern. So what can you do? First, identify and address your own biases around mental health. Bias is a tendency or a prejudice toward or against an idea or a group of people in a way that's often unfair. And this can result, again, in stigma. So you want to be on the lookout for your own biases. What are your tendencies to think about people with mental health concerns? You also want to keep learning and sharing facts about mental health. Those myths that we talked about before, making sure that you, when somebody else expresses them, that you combat them, you combat those non-truths. There's lots of information out there, so it's important to be careful about what you read, but educating yourself first about mental health is key to fighting stigma. You also want to foster a culture that supports help seeking for mental health, so making it normal in your department to talk about mental health. And this is important, especially if you're in a leadership role, because you have the opportunity to change the culture of your department. And last, but certainly not least, being aware of your own mental health and seeking help if you need it. If you've ever been on a plane, you might remember the flight attendants telling you that in case of emergency, put your own oxygen mask on before helping others. Because if you're passed out from lack of oxygen, you're not going to be any good to help others. And similarly, if you recognize warning signs in yourself, you want to seek help because you're going to be better at helping your colleagues if you're taking care of yourself first. So, what happens when someone comes to you with a mental health concern? They say, hey, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling depressed. What can you do? So, you want to start with just simple questions. It's like, what can I do to help? Or how can I help you? You can ask, how long have you been feeling this way? Or are you getting the care you need? And through this, you really want to treat people with respect, just as you would anyone else who comes to you with a different concern. One way to do this is to avoid labels like crazy. You can also share facts about mental health, especially if you hear something that's not true in your department. And you also want to know your resources, both local and state and national, and help them access them. And so it's really important to know those resources. So if somebody comes to you with a concern, you are able to help. So here are some of those resources. So for national and international resources, we have the International Association of Firefighters and the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. If you'd like more information about mental health, you can go to mentalhealth.gov. That's a great place to start. Or the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA website. For local resources, good places to start are Real Crisis or Mobile Crisis through Integrated Family Services. And you can always email us if you want other resources to help you or your colleagues. So if you have any questions or if you would like more resources, my email is right down there at the bottom. This is the end of the presentation, and thank you so much for your attention and also for your commitment to our community.